Hi, I want to give you some tips on how to turn this into a faux stained glass frame. So first of all, we're going to want to get the overall outline without the antenna. I'm going to use the curvature tool for this. I actually like this better than the pen tool because we can click and go. So I'll start there. And as I click around, it does curves for me, which I can change later with the direct selection tool. So I'm kind of clicking at points of curvature and worrying about if my curvature is exact. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to go a little bit wider on this. Let's see. I think I will go to the edge here. You don't want super sharp corners when you're doing faux stained glass because it might cause errors on the water jet. So let me get back to the beginning. There. So I have my outer layer, or my outer outline. I'm going to clean this up a little bit because you guys already know how to do it. I'll be using the selection tool to try to get my edge closer to the shape of the butterfly, although I'm going to keep the body the same. So I'm going to pause this and I'll come back when it's cleaned up a little bit. Okay, I just realized I made a classic mistake and I left it there to show you, but even though I have a second layer called design, if I hide this first layer, it's all on the same layer, which is a no-no. Fortunately, I've only one path, so I'm going to take the selection tool, cut that path, Control X, lock that layer with the design on it. The design layer, and you may not have seen this yet, but there's a really nice feature in Illustrator called Paste in Place. So paste it on my new layer. Oh, it doesn't know that I'm on my new layer yet. Let me try that again. I think I have my design layer selected. Now I'm going to go to Paste in Place again, and it puts it directly where it was on my first layer. So you can see I have my first path pretty close to the original piece. I think I am going to bring this up a little more. I don't want to bend that anymore, but I'm going to bend this handle. Okay, so when you're doing faux stained glass, the edge can't be a line, it has to be a face. So I basically need a bigger version or a smaller version of this path so that it'll make a face. And I'll show you what I mean. So the easiest way to do it, depending on what you have selected, is the offset tool. And I chose this butterfly intentionally because it's a good starter one. But notice I have this path selected. I'm going to go to Object and Path and Offset Path, and you can see it automatically makes, I'm going to click OK, it automatically makes a second layer. And if I hide my source, that's the frame I would essentially want cut out on the water jet. Now, of course, we want more lines within this, but this is a good start. And let me show you a way you can tell if it's all one face, which is easy right now. If I select both of those outlines and I come down to Path and Join, oh, maybe I can't. Let me just try something else. If I put a fill in here, that didn't work how I wanted to either. Okay, so we'll just go back to fill. And are these two pieces? It actually is one piece. I don't know why. Oh, I'm going to go back to Phil for a sec. Who's Phil? What does he have to do with this? So Phil's the whole thing. What I'm wondering is if I can delete inside face, but it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to take away Phil because I find it confusing. Okay, so, whoops, not selected. Let's try that again. select it, take away the fill. Okay. I'm now going to, turn on my bottom layer. By the way, you need to make sure your work is only 2 layers. You have the source picture layer and you have the design layer. Keep the source picture layer locked. So to get this little line and then the oval and then another little line, you're just going to trace it. It can't be exact. As a matter of fact, since every line needs a 2-line thickness, what I would do is trace on either side. Now you can use the offset tool, but I think I'm just going to do a couple curves that are pretty much the same. Okay, and now I'm going to make an oval with the ellipse tool, which I think goes from the center. So you might have to do it off to the side, and then take the selection tool and then connect it. I'll show you why we're connecting it there in a second. I'm going to make it a little bigger, so I'm going to use the indirect selection tool. Whoops, forgot to click that. So maybe I'll bring that down here. And click this, bring it up, bring these out a little bit. And I think it's fine if it looks like an egg. And then I'll do 2 more lines down to the next piece. Or sorry, I used the curve tool before, so I'm just going to use the curve tool again. It's not really curving exactly how I want, but I can move the dot later. So I'll put another one here. And then I'm going to, I think I'm going to use this tool for the next piece. That tool loves to start at an anchor, which actually might be good for me right now. So I'm going to make this smaller, and you'll see why in a second. I'll just go straight back to here. Whoops, I missed. Always try to connect it to the anchor. Okay, I'm going to hit escape. Now, there's a few things going on here. Let me go back to this tool. So let me turn this off. It's pretty similar. I'm going to switch to my indirect tool, get this a little better. So I'm going to click. Oh, maybe it is the same. It just needs a little curvature. So we have the edge. Zoom out. You can see that this edge is there, but the one leading into the circle is not. The other problem is we need to cut these pieces right here. So if I zoom in a little bit and I click the path, there's no anchor points to delete. So I'm going to take the anchor point tool and I'm going to click here and I'm going to click here. So I just made a line segment on that path. And if I go to my direct selection tool and click that, let me click nothing and then just click that little path, I can erase that and now I have an opening. So what that's showing me is this whole channel here is metal. Okay, and now I need another little hole here. So basically I'm making holes where we're going to pour resin. I am going to make my other ellipse inside, or actually this is a spot where I could say, okay, I want the offset of this, so I can go path, offset. This is going to be kind of harder. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I don't want it on the outside. I want it on the inside. And I'm wondering if I put a minus here, if that will work. It did. It's a little smaller than I wanted, but I am going to hit OK. Actually, let me undo. Let me try that again. Object, path, offset. Let's go negative 1. I'll delete this part. If I hit tab, there, that's more what I like. So I'm going to click OK. I don't love this sharp corner. So if I click the anchor, it doesn't look like I have handles, like I have handles. That's because I'm not in the right tool. Let me click that. I'm going to bring the handles up a little bit. Give it a little bit more of a curve. Make it less of a sharp angle. I'm going to do the same thing down here. So pull this out and down, and that's a little bit better. Okay, so, but we need the flow to come through here. So again, I have an anchor here. I'm going to delete it and see if it does too much. It definitely did too much. Maybe not. I could, if I want to, try bringing this up to here. No, that's a bad idea. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to come back to my Add Anchor Point tool. Actually, I'm going to click the Selection tool and click Away, so nothing's selected. Now I'm going to take the Anchor Point tool and I'm going to put an anchor here and an anchor here, and make sure you're clicking on the path. Now I'm going to go back to my Direct Selection tool, deselect, and basically I want that little path from the anchors I want to delete it. And that looked pretty good. I can probably delete this anchor because it looks like I have two next to each other. And that looks pretty good. So what we have so far is that this will be filled with resin. This will be filled with resin. We don't want this whole thing filled with resin. And we probably want these two pieces connected. So one thing I'm going to do, you can't, if I click this, that's the whole path. We might be able to offset it, because if I offset it and there's no room for this offset, I think it just disappears. So let's go ahead and try that. Path, offset. Let's make it, and it did do a -1, but it's really interesting. But see how confusing that is? I think you're better off clicking cancel and doing it manually. So if we click, this curvature tool always likes to click a point that it wants to use, which is annoying, but all you have to do is click escape, and you can start your own here. So I'm going to make a little bit of a hole in here. Come on, go back to the beginning. There. And again, our direct selection tool will allow us to click the anchor, pull this handle in. I can move the anchor, pull this in, pull that. I actually think I want to extend that because I get a bigger curve. Pull down a little bit, because you want to try to get a little bit of a consistency. Now you can see fill with resin, fill with resin, fill with resin. Let me turn this back on. So you can see that I now have double outlines mimicking the single line that was in the original drawing. I'm going to hide that again. I'm going to do one more thing over here. You don't really want two lines touching each other. You want to blend it into a single line. So I have an anchor point right here. I'm going to drag that anchor point onto this path. And then I'm going to see, I can probably delete this anchor. Let me deselect everything, get that anchor point back and delete it. Yeah, that worked. I think that worked nicely. Let me see how much it took off from the top. I think that's okay, because now what I can do is I can take this anchor point, connect it to the original thing, and I can even keep that curve if I like that curve. Otherwise, I can play with that a little bit. I can take this anchor curve, bring that anchor straight down, give it a little more of a curve if I want, maybe bring it down a little more. That anchor doesn't look like it's doing anything. But you can see you want these pieces that are going to be metal flowing into each other. So I connected these nicely, but I now need to delete this segment. And actually, now that I have more room, I might pull this down more and widen it a little bit. Yeah. So let's zoom in here. And I probably need to put anchor points in here. There's no anchor points along here. So I'm going to take my Add Anchor Point tool. I'm going to add an anchor there and an anchor there. And then I'm going to go back to my direct selection, deselect, select that path segment, and hit delete. And if I zoom back out, hopefully you can see that this whole edge is going to be metal, and the holes inside are going to be for resin. And as for the antenna, the reason I didn't draw them is because they're going to need to be pretty big, or they're going to need to be fat. And we might actually only want one. Whoops. I'm in the curve tool. So I think I might just do this and then connect them and have one fat. I'm looking, maybe I'll use this. So we're going to go here to here. I think it's too much to try to do two, because that's just going to be metal also. But again, I got to come in here and erase the segment between the antenna and the body or the head. So I'm going to plant an anchor there, and I'm going to plant an anchor there. Get my direct selection, click on this, delete that segment. You can see this is going to be resin, this is going to be resin, this is going to be resin, and the rest is metal. So now I want to make designs here, so you can get a better picture of what it looks like. I am going to stop and do it off screen and add more, and I'll come back and show you what I finish. So here's what I've come up with. It is confusing seeing both the source and the design at once. And I left a line in here that needs to be erased, but let me turn off the source photo. But you can kind of see, like if you bring your mouse along the path, the path I'm doing around the holes is what's going to be metal, okay? And so there should be like one clear walkway through all of them. You can see there's a little mistake here because I want that flowing. So imagine if you took the paint bucket, and maybe we'll even try to see if we can fill this in. We'll have to join the paths first, but let me put a little channel through here. So I'm going to take the add anchor tool and add anchors on this path, and then switch to the direct selection, deselect, reselect that little path and delete. Sometimes there's extra anchors, so now I can click that, delete it. I don't like this little bend, so I think I'm going to bring this out a little bit and see which handle is making that ugly sharpness there. That's more smooth. Okay, you don't have to worry about these little things that stick out. When we get it to the WaterJet software, it's going to delete some of those little hiccups. So if I open up my layers thing, you can see there's lots of different paths. Sometimes a figure will join itself nicely, and I'm going to try to do that because I think I can flow through all the other areas. So let me get this whole thing selected and see what happens if I join paths. Object, path, join. Yeah, sometimes put stuff in there you don't want. So I'm going to click undo. I am going to export this as a DXF and try it out in the watercolor software. So that is File, Export as, and let's see if there's DXF in here. I think I might have chosen the wrong thing. Oh no, it's the first one. DXF. I'll just do it to my same thing. I'll show you another video what the watercut software looks like, but hopefully you understood it. I know the butterfly wasn't super easy, but easier than other ones. And basically you just got to keep in mind that you're looking to draw holes that are going to be filled with resin. And then anything that's not a hole for resin needs to be a path that just runs along the whole face. Okay, good luck.